So I have a special guest today that I'm so excited to introduce everyone to. This is Panilla.
Thank you. Well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, thank you. I pronounced your name right. So thank you for agreeing to come and chat with me and all the viewers about you and some of the insights and different things that have happened to you in your life. So maybe just start by giving us a little background into you. Where did you come from, and how did how were things growing up, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, thank you. Um, well, I'm Danish. I'm living in the UK at the moment, but I am Danish. And yeah, I'm autistic. I actually want to start by saying that I'm autistic. I'm Asperger's, but I'm late diagnosed, so I didn't know as a child. I just knew that I was different, and I perceived the way differently. I grew up in a very small town, and I went to a great school where everybody knew everyone. So it wasn't in the younger years that I really picked up that I was different, because me preferring being in the library, or preferring, you know, sitting with the adults at school, and not really liking being out playing, and didn't really have I didn't really have a girlfriend. I had one girlfriend when I turned 13. That was the first girlfriend I had, because it just didn't, gel. It didn't click. Um, so I knew I was different. And I knew that it was like other people understood things in a way that I didn't. Now looking at it in retrospect, I can see that it felt like everybody had been given this manual to life. They had really got the memo, and I just didn't pick up on it. Um, and then I stumbled across Buddhism when I was around 13. I was raised by my dad, and he started meditating. Well, my dad, he's a psychologist, and I usually say that I grew up in a mental institution, because I did. My dad, he's a psychologist, and we lived in one of the buildings on the compound, which was there. So it was actually super protected and really, really lovely place that I grew up in. And the other children that was living there was also children of doctors and psychologists and therapists that were working at the hospital. And one of the doctors there, he was Theravadan, and he started to meditate. And my dad, he went to meditate, and I just tagged along, and I absolutely loved it. It was
Mm.
just it completely
Oh, I love
completely
that.
clicked in me. Yeah, it completely clicked in me. It was like that sense of calm that I had. As an artist, we tend to mask a lot, because we really try to be normal. So we really try, to fit in. And I just felt that with the meditation, I just had, it was like I arrived, in my body. And the one that was leading the meditation there, my dad, he then stopped, and I continued. And he was really great, and he completely knew, that joy that I had of learning. I have that autistic yearning to learn, and I see patterns everywhere. And I read very quickly, so it's like, a book a day. So
Mm.
the first thing he did was giving me the Satipatthana Sutta, and I thought it was amazing. The Satipatthana Sutta is a sutta that is teaching you that when you're walking, you're walking. When you're sitting, you're sitting. When you're drinking, you're drinking. So it's basically about being present in the moment and not multitasking in any way. And for my little mind, that just went like that all the time. It was really, yeah, a huge insight in slowing down and just taking one thing at a time. He then also gave me
Mm.
the Pranya Paramita, which is the Heart Sutra, which is saying, one of the sentences in that is that form is emptiness and emptiness is form. And I did not understand that. And I think it took me the better part of 12
Mm.
years until I understood that. Until I understood that one. So yeah, meditation was
Yeah.
just a basic, practice for me, from a very young age. And I just used it, to get calm and to um, as an artist, we when we get overstimulated, we usually react in two ways. Either we react with meltdowns, where it's like, it's like a physical, emotional sneeze. You cannot hold it back, and it's just aggravation. And a lot of autists, they tend to trash everything around them, or they self harm in some way. Bang their head against the wall, or hit their hand into the wall, or cut themselves, or anything like that. I don't react with meltdowns. I react with shutdowns, which means that um,
Mm,
it's like my mind can't take in anything more. I'm done. The way the level
mm,
of sensory experiences that I have through my sense of smell and my sense of hearing and my sense of seeing and touching, everything is just too much, too much. So the brain kind of completely shuts down, and I tend to
mm,
go mute for, yeah, for hours or days. It depends on how long it takes
mm,
to come back. Um, so what I really, at some point, and I can't remember at which point it was, but with that part of the shutting down, um, I got help with asking the question, can you be in a body that is completely overstimulated? And at first it was like, no, I can't. No, I can't. I can't be anywhere. So the next question would be, can you accept that you cannot be in a body that is overstimulated? And it gave me that insight
mm,
about accepting the things that I cannot accept. And with that, I create
mm,
a space in me that makes it possible to even be in the worst considered, the worst incidents, the worst things happening in my life, the worst sensations that I have in my body, um, because I create space for the acceptance of not wanting what is, then there's no fight anymore.
mm.
So I'm not fighting for it to
I love
end.
it.
I'm not fighting for it to stop or go away. I just create, with compassion and love, just create space to what is there. And it's there anyway. I'm just creating
Mm,
space to what is. And by
mm,
that, a lot is dissolving by itself. Um,
mm. Yeah, I'm curious about what you mentioned with masking. A couple things. One was you described masking, and as a child being more interested in being around adults. Did you find that in some way your maturity level was sort of beyond your peer group, or was there a sort of not understanding the social cues? I think that was part of my question. Was
yeah.
you mentioned everyone had a map for something you didn't have? Was it did it have to do with social cues and how to act socially and how to just talk the way people talk and stuff?
Yes. It's yes.
Hmm.
It's my answer to both questions is yes. It was it's very much about social cues, because a lot of communication is not verbal. The majority of communication
Hmm.
is understood between the lines, and I do not see between the
Hmm.
lines. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, so that's one thing. Another thing is I'm not good at small talk. I'm not good at chit chat.
Hmm.
I was in my 40s or something like that until I understood that small talk and chit chat is a way for people to acknowledge the other person's existence. It's not meant to be
Hmm.
to go anywhere, which in my mind is so
Yeah.
illogical. I mean, why talk? Why not just be quiet? Then if it's not going anywhere, then just be quiet. But the social convention is, to stand and talk about absolutely nothing, and in my mind that is just odd. But after
Hmm.
I understood that it's about acknowledging the other person's existence, then I understand the other person's need to be acknowledged in their existence. I don't have that need. They do. I'm fine. I can acknowledge your existence. But it's something that I do.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm really, really bad at it. I mean, we should try one day, Angelo, to see if I can small talk with you. I'm really, really bad at it. It always turns into, something super, super profound. So how do you look forward to your death?
Small talk is hard for me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like I think I was able to learn social cues, but they always felt inauthentic to me.
Yes.
Not the social cues that felt inauthentic. The communic- communication sometimes felt inauthentic, especially when there's small talk and unclear communication. There is
Mhm.
one interesting thing I wanted to say is there's a linguist who is also she's still alive. She's also a feminist philosopher her name is Deborah Tannen, and I think back in the 80s, maybe 90s, she wrote on this, the way people use language, and she kind of divided into male and female, but there's definitely crossover. And she said often men use language for report, and women use language for rapport. But she said language is used in both ways. It's used to exchange information, but it's also used to sort of bond. And that was really hard for me to understand. I didn't get that, and probably for me also because my family just didn't bond very well anyway. They didn't make good emotional connections, so I didn't understand the sort of small talk. What are we like banter things we don't? I'm not sure even what we're talking about, and yet some people seem to know really how to speak that way. I just didn't, and so I would try to default to information somehow, and it doesn't fit in that setting with certain people that are trying to bond with you or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also about. I also experience it now. If I'm receiving an email for somebody that wants to bond with me, I'm trying to look for what is it you want. Where is it? I need the bullet
Mm-hmm.
points, and then we do that, and then we do that. So I need to forward it to a friend that is then reading it and telling me, okay, no, it's only because she wants to bond with you. Okay, then I know what we're talking about because I don't I can't pick up. It's like there's nothing to grasp on. It's that talking in circles thing.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that is, and
Mm-hmm.
that's very, very typical for autistic women, it is that we really struggle bonding with neurotypical women because that closeness and that oh, let me see if I can say this in a way without, I'm really not trying to offend anyone in any way. I just want to make that sure,
Sure.
make sure that everybody knows that. It's that then she said, and then I said, and then she said, and I said, I'm
Mm-hmm.
completely lost on communication like that. How about we meet and then we talk it
Yeah.
out and then it's sorted? I can't follow the drama. I can't create a drama out of
Mm-hmm.
nothing. I tend to resolve the drama if there is any. That's one thing that I struggle with. And the other thing is that I'm really, really bad at checking in with a girlfriend all the time for her to know what I'm doing
Yeah.
and then calling and all of that. So I lost a lot of girlfriends on that account because they felt that I didn't prioritize them. They needed,
Mm-hmm.
me to follow the rules of when they have written, then I reply. Just a small thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about that I didn't want to be their friend. I really, really wanted to, and they meant a lot to me. But it's just not. It doesn't come natural to me. I contact them when there's something to talk about. Otherwise, I can't see the idea of
Mm-hmm.
contacting. So it's like, and so therefore,
Yeah.
I've never really had girlfriends. Um, Neurotypical girlfriends. I have autistic girlfriends because we're the same. Don't speak for 3 months, and then
Mm-hmm.
we pick up where we left off. So I've always communicated better with men because men has more of that, very direct. And if there's an issue, then we talk about it. There's not the how are you doing? I'm fine. And then I'm supposed to know that you're not fine when you say that you're fine. It's that is not. It's yeah, yeah.
I know
So
what you mean. I totally know what you mean, and I also have heard it's somewhat cultural too. Like, it's a more common thing in the United States to do small talk than who I think I saw someone was German. Someone was German. They made a video about it and they said, yeah, we don't do that really much here. And so I think some cultures also don't value small talk or whatever, whereas some do. And I can tell you, I've struggled with that in a lot of ways. My in my life too is like I don't know what it is. Small talk is a great word for it. I didn't even know I would have called it that, but it's just that back and forth kind of maybe it can be a little gossipy, it can be a little my mind's going what are we really talking about? Like
yeah,
what and then I think what I learned to do is when I really learned to communicate on an emotional level, now I do know, but I feel it. I feel maybe some insecurity, I feel some restlessness in the person. So I feel what they're feeling. It doesn't really matter what they're chit-chatting about.
yeah,
So I kind of try to negotiate it in that at that level of like maybe offer comfort. Maybe I put my hand on their shoulder or give them a hug if I know them well or whatever. But I can feel that restlessness, and if I know them well enough to talk about emotion, often that's what I'll talk about. I'll be like,
mm,
how are you feeling, like right
yeah,
now?
yeah.
How does your body feel, or things like that are direct.
Yeah,
But
that's one of
yeah.
my autistic superpowers that I'm really good. I have an amazing sense of smell. I can smell diseases and I can smell emotions and I'm like, one of those watchdogs at the
Mm,
airport, right? Um I can smell a lot
Oh.
of things, and so therefore I can smell insecurity, and I can smell fear, and I can smell um, stuff like that. And then when once I realized that, okay, there's something I'm completely missing out on here, the whole understanding. Then I started to get really interested in body language and micro expressions, and I became a psychomotoric therapist. That is one that is basically looking at how the body is moving, and understanding on an emotional level what is behind the way that the muscles are, you know, pulling and pulling and pushing in different ways, because that is tied in with our development since we were, in the womb. And then, the muscles were developed when
Mm,
we were kicking ourselves out during birth, and then creeping and crawling and walking and all of that. And also on the social
mhm,
level, on with social interaction and the emotional and psychological development, the muscles are developed in different ways. So getting that degree was really, really helped me a lot in understanding a lot. When I see a person coming walking, I can read who the person is, and then I have an idea what we're going to talk about or what it is. So it is kind of like a cheat sheet, to understanding
mhm.
it. But I still don't
Beautiful.
pick up on what do you call that, incentive, the underlying meaning with things. I take things for
Oh.
face value.
Mhm.
I'm very, very easy to trick and deceive, and because I completely take everything on face value. So I'm super, super gullible in that sense. Yeah.
Mm.
I would like the
I
Pinocchio
also
thing.
wanted to
If
ask
that can
you.
happen, that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. I would also be curious about your experience of the sense fields when you were younger, maybe before awakening. Like some autists will describe certain senses, the visual sense maybe, or sound being so almost invasive. It's so intense, you don't know
Yes.
how to mitigate it. So that can make it distracting and hard to focus on like very subtle things like visual cues, for instance,
Yes.
in other people or things like that, because the senses are so intense in some ways. Did you have that as well?
Yes, yes, I've always had it with layer of sound, but it's very much my smell that I have it with. As I said, I was living in a
Mm-hmm.
in a very beautiful area of Denmark, and there was a huge forest close by, and I always loved to run, and running in the forest, especially during the early morning and dusk, early when the twilight, when it's like, at night. And I always felt safe running because I could smell people coming before they knew that I was there. And then I could smell, if it was a
Wow.
man or woman, or if they were, if it was one of the people that were, in the hospital, or somebody else. Um, and obviously, if it was somebody, one of the patients, I knew I would be safe because they were medicated. It's not like all the loonies out there that are not medicated. So yeah, so it's more my sense
Mm,
of smell.
that's fascinating.
Of smell. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it also
Are
makes
you
it.
synesthetic naturally?
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's
um
cool.
I for example, I taste color. I taste a lot of colors.
Mm.
Um I Yeah. Yeah, it's that crossover, and I smell feelings, as I
Yeah.
said, and yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
it's a
Yeah,
superpower.
I didn't have that naturally, but yeah, yeah. I didn't have it naturally, but after non-dual realization, it was like I can't separate them in one sense.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
yeah, that's really yeah,
Yeah. It
yeah.
it it is it is one of the things that when
So
sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
It is one of the things that when
We're
I'm
on that time delay thing, so
yeah, yeah, sorry, sorry. Um, it is one of those things. I'm working with the fetters from the Buddhist
mm,
text from the Theravadan tradition. It's from a sutta called the Samyuyana Sutta, which is about the 10 fetters. And that just makes complete sense to me. And when the sixth fetter fall, that is about the form and the formlessness, all the dimensions, the way that we see things. When that falls, synesthesia is one of the, things that happens, that you start to smell numbers, and you start to feel music, and you start, the experience of the sensory experience is not limited to one sense anymore. It's
Mm,
interwoven into all the senses, and also between
mm,
people, the
mhm,
how can I say, the distance or the dimension between two people completely evaporate, and it's like you are with the other person,
mm.
if that person is, is there as well. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was also a big leap in the feeling, the physical feeling of love,
Mm.
just being around like an animal or another human being, because I can feel them there,
Yeah,
even without any identity or story. Their aliveness, their energy, them, whatever that energy is in the energy field. And so, yeah, before that, love was reasonably intellectual for me. I think in one
yeah,
sense,
in
like
the
I had
head.
emotions that were associated, but after it's an instantaneous sort of full on experience, and it's not about based on your convenience or your preferences or even really whether it's a good person or bad person. It's not really like that. You just feel it, and it's very tactile, very visceral and alive.
But also I have it with people and animal, but I also have it with nature. I can feel like immense
Mm,
love sitting
yeah.
and looking at cloud formations, for example. I have a thing about clouds,
Hmm.
that movement and that layer of colors that are even in a when it's just gray, when it's seemingly gray.
Hmm.
That movement of colors that is happening is like it's such a profound feeling of love that I get when I'm sitting and looking at it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I actually also have it with inanimate objects too. Like, I can feel so much connection to like just the wall or the floor or my hands or yeah, everything becomes a focus of meditation, you could say,
Yes.
but that the interconnection is so profound. It's what I would wish for anyone, really,
Yeah.
ultimately, to know that
Yeah.
sameness. Or
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also why what I'm working on my channel, because I know that obviously I perceive the world differently because of my brain, because of my autistic brain, and my neural pathways are shorter, so I perceive the world differently. But what I have experienced is that with the feta work, it really makes it so accessible, and because it's logic, you take one
hmm,
attachment at a
yeah,
time, and then you dissolve it, and there you go, off you go. And then it's just
yeah,
sorted. It's just very, very logic
hmm,
and very accessible. And I absolutely love that. And
hmm,
also another thing I really love about it
hmm,
is that you cannot be forceful. You cannot wanting to do it, because then you lose it. It's like grasping water, you completely lose it if you're trying to grasp it. So you need to completely let it go. And instead of
hmm,
of how can I say, making it happen, then you just let it happen. So it's
hmm,
also very much about surrender,
hmm,
and giving up the idea that there is a you that can actually do something, control something, and move things in a certain direction. That complete delusion needs to be dissolved, and then it
hmm.
just happens all by itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. My Zen teacher used to say this beautiful thing. He would say, he'd tell a story where he would try to force himself to become one with a flower or something, object, and it was so stressful for him. He said, and then at one point it just dawned on him to just become still and let everything overtake you, let the environment overtake you, and that's a good way of saying it. It's something like that for sure. Uh, Maybe let's go back a bit and talk about what got you interested in spirituality per se. Well, you talked about meditation already, but uh, when did you start to approach the sort of awakening, or did you start doing self inquiry, or did you have other
No,
practices like that?
no, no, not at all. I didn't have
No.
any. I was I was very, very autistic in the way about enlightenment and about awakening, that cannot happen. It happens 2000 lifetimes from now. So it wasn't even on my radar. It wasn't something
Hmm.
I was looking at or wanting in any way at all. But I had been very, very. I want to say I had been very, very diligent with my meditation practice, and I was um, very. I mean, I've been traveling a lot, been, yeah, living in been to 31 different countries. I've been traveling a lot. I've been living in a lot of countries, and I always had the Dhammapada with me because yeah, I just love the Dhammapada, and then the Tao Te Ching. So I really, really, really worked diligently with that, and I've always, yeah, read the suttas, and I love the monotony of the suttas, that repetitive, meditative state that you get into when you read them, and you do it with your breathing. I absolutely love that. So I've been doing that a lot, but I
Mm.
hadn't any idea that I could become awake at all. And then I got cancer, and I got malignant melanoma, and I got 4 months left to live. And I was completely frantic. I had just had my son, and I was completely frantic and finding out how I could, cure myself from that, because I was like, nothing happens out of nothing. Nothing comes of nothing. There's always a condition. There's always a reason to why things happen. And I was, reading. That was before the internet, so I was reading frantically, in in books, and trying to find a solution for it. And then I read somewhere, I have no idea where, but it was like, I'm very much into medical studies, and I love stuff, like I love biochemistry and neurochemistry, so I always loved it. And I read a study, or something. It was something like that, where there was like a quote where it said that 80% of all cancer patients die, 100% of all people die, and it was just,
Mm.
um, it was just, it just said like click in my brain. I just understood that frantically searching not to die was completely delusional. You know, I'm not, just because I
Mm.
have cancer doesn't mean that I'm dying more than anyone else. I can be hit by a bus before I die of cancer. So it's like,
Mhm.
why why fight, not to die when I'm right
Mm.
now not dying? I'm here right now. Why fight and be
Mm.
fearful about what will happen in the future, when for sure I am going to die? So I went to bed with that complete mind-blowing realization, and when I woke up, um I was awake. um
Mm.
and I can't tell you what happened, and I can't tell you um what it was. It was just different. Everything was different. Everything was different.
Mm.
I had no attachment to living. I had no wish for dying, but I had no attachment
Mhm.
in not dying or being alive. And I was just, the all the stories I had, with childhood and neglect, and not having friends and being weird and all of that. It was just gone. It was just gone.
Mm.
It was just like it was like waking up from from a really, really bad movie script, stepping out from the scene, and
Mm.
just, that was, and then I stepped into life, and that was just it. And the funny thing was, Angela,
Mhm.
um after I woke up, I understood the Pranya Paramita. I understood the Heart Sutra. The form is emptiness, emptiness is
Yeah.
form, is not. Wow. Wow, I understood it,
Mhm.
really, really understood it. um
Yeah. You
yeah,
understand it, and you also see it right in front of your face.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
can never forget it.
No, 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 no.
So beautiful.
Yeah, it really, really is.
Yeah.
Really, really is. And that really, really deep, profound understanding of that. I have always, I love knowledge. Like when I was a child, I was reading encyclopedias. It was like, the best thing to sit and read. It was encyclopedias. I loved sitting. Back then we had phone books, and I love sitting and looking at phone books and seeing the pattern in the numbers. It gave me kind of like a solace, and
Mm.
that, remembering how, and counting, multiplying and counting how many Petersons there was in the phone book, stuff like that was my childhood fun. Um, and I've always loved that, grasping of knowledge, and always, and also, like I said, with the cancer, I was so sure that I am gonna find out why I got cancer. I am gonna find out it is, and I am gonna, and that fighting just. ended because I understood I'm never gonna know. There's so many things that I'm never gonna
Hmm.
know and I'm not supposed to know, and nobody knows. And it's not meant that you shouldn't um it's not meant to go into a resignation or into an apathy, because even that would be just as delusional. It's just the other side of it, equally delusional.
Hmm.
But it was
Yeah.
just that grasping for it was just gone.
Oh, love it.
And funnily enough, my cancer s- evaporated. It just wasn't there
Mm.
anymore.
Mm. When this occurred, did you think, I know what this is? This is what they're talking about in the suttas?
Nope.
Or did
No,
you
no, no,
relate
no.
that, or you just knew that it was just clear? Yeah.
I had no idea what it was. I just knew things was
Mm.
different. Um, I was just present in a different way. I wasn't scared anymore. I
Hmm.
didn't have any preferences towards one thing happening or another thing not happening. I didn't have that preference anymore. I was more like gelling with everything, just flowing with everything. And I thought it was just, I thought it was just that, clarity that some people have after they have, a diagnosis like cancer. You get that clarity of
Mm.
life. And I thought it was just that. I had no idea what it actually was. That wasn't until much, 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 much later.
Mm. Now, did that change or evolve or deepen over time, or was it sort of clear from the beginning and stayed that way?
Um, um, I felt it was clear. Um, and I felt it was just um, unchangeable in the way that things cannot be unchangeable, if you know what I mean. Nothing ever is. Um,
Hmm.
so I had like that. I still had all the things. Um, I I then started to study medicine and became a naturopathic doctor and specialized in a field that is called anti-homotoxicology, which is about how a disease is developing and how it is regressing back to health again. Um, and I was trying, with the consultations and with the patients that I had, I was trying to mix this understanding of no self into it without talking directly about it. And I've never used Pali words or
Mm.
anything like that because I didn't want to limit um the people that came to me in any way. I wanted like everyone to come to me. So I've never used Pali words about it. And then I started having I had a huge waiting list, 7 months waiting list. So I started having groups instead, where I was teaching in a 6 months group setting, where there would be like between 20 and 40 people there, and they would be there from like 10 in the morning to 5 in the evening with one lunch break, and not the rest of the time was just me standing, doing my autistic oversharing. And it was really really great.
Mm.
And it's so nice also now when I meet some of the ones that participate. I remember all of them. That's another thing with I had eidetic memories. So I remembered everything. I'm really good at remembering what I have read and where I read it and use it interdisciplinary. So that's again an autistic superpower. um, and even when I meet some of them now, that's like 20 years later, they're just like, oh, it was such a great time because it was just really really magical. Um,
Mm.
and I've published 3 books in Danish. Uh, not specifically about that, but in a way where it's about how you can change the inside of your life with every single area of your life, and then kind of like turning a kaleidoscope in every single area of your life, you end up with a different result, obviously, because we tend to
Mm.
choose to do in life either as we have been taught to do or the opposite. So if you have been neglected as a child, you tend to go, I'm not going to neglect my children, not at all. I'm not going to neglect them at all. Or you're just going to copy paste what you were taught and neglecting them. And both are neglect because you're not neglecting your children, but you're still neglecting you. So the starting point is the same. Nothing has changed. So the only way that we can
Hmm.
do to get out of that starting point is to do something completely different. And that is what happens when you're working
Hmm.
with the first three fetters, which is about non-self and doubt, and then the habits. And habits is like a big,
Hmm.
big one because we have that tendency to create our lives around ourselves within our habits. We do things with a purpose. I'm going running because I want to lose weight. I'm meditating because I want to become enlightened. I'm eating healthy because I want to live long. We're not doing anything for the sake of it. We're doing it because of something. And in that, we're completely lost
Hmm.
because we're delusional when we think that we can manipulate the future into being a certain thing. Sorry, by
Hmm.
doing a certain thing. It's not how it works. I mean, you can eat healthy from now on, and until you're hit by a bus. It's not really, it's not any insurance of any kind to do a certain thing. So therefore, it was very much focused about the first
Hmm.
three fetters in the group.
Mm. That's beautiful. So I like that you emphasize the third fetter there. Is it tends to get grouped in with the first fetter, um, but I think it plagues people for a long time. Actually, that sticky mindset around even spiritual practices, not seeing that things are simply happening the way they're happening, and to fully just give yourself to that or let that overtake is one way of moving through life, and it's a beautiful way. It's an immersive way. Then there's another way to stand back just enough to keep telling yourself a story about why you're doing it and why this happened and why you're going to do this to cause that. It can sneak its way in there
Yeah.
pretty easily. So
Yeah.
how might you work with somebody about that specifically?
Well, the two major things that I focus on is that first of all, become aware of your thoughts and really noticing that the thoughts are like any other sensory experience you have. It's like sense of smell, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching. The thoughts is the same thing, and in the thoughts we have the being or
Hmm.
we have the selfing. And the selfing is when we put the
Yeah.
ego in. I love using the word that Jung had from where he calls it an ego, because nobody wants to be egotistical. So it's great. Yeah, there you go. So the selfing is when you are is when you are egotistical. When you have an ego, you put yourself in the center, and you view everything from there. How do you dare to talk to me like that? Why did you not do what I wanted
Hmm.
you to do? Oh, I don't want to do that. Oh, I do want to do that. It's with the ego in the middle. So it's the selfing in the middle, and it is so self-serving. And the needs that is within that, it's always from a starting point of I am not, I should be. So I am not okay. I can be okay if I really pull myself together, or I'm not as rich as I want to be. I can be. So it's very much about it's the starting point is lack. The starting point is not being
Hmm.
okay as I am and doing everything I can to be okay, or at least manipulate the world into a place where I then will be okay. And that is created in the
Hmm.
thoughts. So reaching a space where you can look at your thoughts and see that it's you, just like you don't need to do anything when you smell a strawberry or you hear a sound. You don't need to do anything. It's the same with the thoughts. You don't need to do anything. Just observe what is happening, and then look at it like you were
Hmm.
an anthropologist. Be really, really curious to what is motivating me right now. What is the underlying motivation factor for me to do this? And do I really need to do it? Because just because you have a thought doesn't mean that you need to do anything about it. And the same with feelings, that whenever you have a feeling, we have a tendency to not wanting to have a feeling that is icky and unpleasant, and really, really wanting another feeling that is really, really nice. So it's the same pattern. I am not, I should be. I do not want this feeling, I want that instead. So it's the same thing.
Hmm.
And whenever we have an icky feeling in us that we don't want, for example, if I have a feeling of shame, I do not want to walk around feeling shameful. So I'm doing everything I can not to be shameful, not to feel shameful. And in that, I'm completely bypassing and gaslighting myself of what is actually happening, because I am feeling shameful. Own it.
Hmm.
I am feeling shameful. And then we're back to the question that
Hmm.
I asked before. Can I be in a body that feels shame. And it's either, yes, I can be in a body right now. I'm super shameful. I'm not doing anything. I'm just feeling the feeling. Feelings are not supposed to be acted on, they're supposed to be felt. So just feel the feeling.
Mm,
So you feel the feeling. Can I be in a body that is shameful right now? Yes, I can. Or hell no, I cannot. And if it's the no, I cannot, then it's okay. Can I accept that I cannot be in a body that is full of shame? I'm still not changing
mm,
the shaming.
mm,
I'm now accepting that I do not want what is. And that creates space. So the feeling is felt, even though
mm,
I cannot accept the feeling that I'm feeling. So those are the
mm.
two first thing that I'm working with in the first two fetters. Yeah.
I think that's so powerful. It's a very practical. Anyone can understand it, and with some insight, anyone can disidentify with from thoughts enough to see those thoughts.
Yes.
And it really is that simple. I think. I also like that you added in approaching it with a sort of curiosity, like an innocence, right? Like, what is this? And that curiosity is natural. We all have it somewhere inside of us, and we if when that natural curiosity and innocence comes into contact with that part of us that may feel quite resistant, or even the fear of I'm fundamentally corrupted or something, it tends to soften it, and then over time it softens it tremendously, and then we can actually, in some strange way, we can quite enjoy feeling an emotion like shame or guilt or resentment,
Yeah.
because what
Yeah.
is
Because
this?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what is
you
this energy?
yeah,
It's energy. Like,
exactly.
what it's here right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Hmm.
yeah, you're completely
Nice.
right. And it's also the part with who am I to judge that a feeling of shame is a bad feeling? Am I absolutely sure that I know that a
Yeah.
feeling of shame is a bad feeling? Or is that just, an idea that I have? Just like when I look at snow, I think it's cold. Well, have you ever tried to go outside when there's snow outside and the wind is actually warm? It is possible. So I can
Mm,
actually experience to
mm,
be in a body where I think I have an icky feeling of shame, but when I really, really feel into it,
hmm,
it's not really. I'm clammy in my hands. I'm sweating a lot. I'm a little bit nauseated, and that's it. That's it. The
mm,
physical
hmm,
sensation is not, there is no physical sensation of shame. There's a feeling that I attach a
mm,
thought to, and then I'm working with the thought about it. I'm not even in my body
mm,
experiencing how it is to be in a body that is feeling shame. Because then that if I was, I would know that this is not shame. This is clammy hands, a bit of sweat, and nauseated.
hmm.
It's not the label
Yeah.
of shame is something that I have added with my mind. So when
Yeah.
we completely dissect it like that, we also find out that having let's say that sensation of shame is amazing because it gives me an insight. Oh my goodness, I have just manipulated the entire situation into me being shameful. I'm not. I'm clammy and nauseated. Wow, So there's an
Mm,
insight in it. What is it in this situation that rings a bell and makes me think that I'm shameful when I'm not? I'm clammy and
mm.
and nauseated. So every
Yeah.
single situation we're
Beautiful.
in is useful. There's always something useful. You cannot be selective in any way and think that getting cancer is a bad thing. Well, I'm sitting here going like, that's amazing. I completely recommend it. You
Mm,
might become awake.
mm,
So it's like there's no
mm.
situation that is that is a good situation or a bad situation. It's just a situation, and whatever label we put on it makes us believe that it's a good or bad thing. But it's not. It's just
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, I would agree. I would even say that the habituated resistance we have around certain emotions, that's what the label actually is. The envelope we put around that collection of experiences that we call shame. And then the other thing I hear people say often is the negative emotions. They use that term, and it,
Yes.
it stands out to me more and more because it's a common thing people say. But I really wonder, like, have you really thought about what negative emotions even means? Like, are there actually a collection of emotions that are negative, and then there's ones that are positive? And what are
No.
the implications of even believing that? Well, like that you can choose the emotion. Well, that's not how it works. The emotion's there, and then you might be able to choose whether to avoid it or not, or to go into your mind or turn it into a narrative. But at some point, you'll realize the emotion's quite primary, and it's because it's made out of sensations, and those sensations are made out of absolutely nothing. And there's
Yes.
just such a release in that,
Yeah.
when you're willing to just stop it, essentially.
Sorry. Yeah. The way that I look at it is that no, there are no negative emotions at all. And the way that I look at it is from, again, from the Buddhist angle, where you have Vedana. That is a sensation, and a sensation can be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. When we put a label on that, it becomes a feeling. So I have a sensation, I put a label on it with a thought, and that becomes a feeling. If I keep repeating that experience over and over and over, my biochemical pattern is going to adapt and become similar with that thought that I have about it, and that becomes an emotion. That's how I see it. And then
Mm,
I'm working with something where that I call the emotional indicators. And the emotional indicator is fear, anger, guilt, and shame. And those are kind of like the primary emotions that we can have. They're always an underlying belief. There's always an underlying belief behind those emotional indicators. And whenever I get a feeling of fear, anger, guilt, and shame, it's an indication for me to stop. Because right now I'm acting on an underlying belief. I'm not present in the now, and I'm completely delusional in the situation. So I need to, completely stop and then feel into the body. Okay, right now I'm so aggravated. Angelo, he's ridiculous. He's so annoying, and he's just really, really pissing me off. And then I need to stop. Okay, that anger that I'm feeling right now, it cannot possibly have anything to do with anyone but myself, because I can get this emotion when I'm sitting on a desert island. Angelo doesn't even need to be there, and I can get angry at Angelo. So it's impossible that it has anything to do with you. And in that, I work with the what I call the bubble of reality. That we have like this bubble around us that we're shaping our reality out from. And on the inside of the bubbles, they're mirrors, nothing else. So everything that I see, Angelo, he's always so annoying. The way that he's asking questions, he's so pretentious. He's so pretentious. That is me I'm talking about. It can only ever be me, because the mirrors I'm only looking at me from my background, from my experiences, saying that if anybody has, a direct or I'm sitting and making stuff up here, Angelo. You need to help me here. Being direct, or being, having a certain um, solidity in them, then I have been told since I was a child that that is a sign that somebody's pretentious. I have been told not to be pretentious. So I have been trying to be a chameleon my entire life, not having my own opinion. So when you're sitting there being so confident, then you need to change, because otherwise I need to look at me, and I'm not interested in that. So that is how I
mhm.
use the emotional
Yeah.
indicators. And that is fear, anger, guilt, and shame. Whenever we feel that, we are triggered in an underlying belief that we have been taught is a reality, and we're shaping that underlying belief into our reality. And because it's only mirror on the
Mm,
insides, I can only, draw from my own experience, and it has only to do with me. So no matter what you
mm,
say, no matter what I hear, what I think I hear you say, it's about me. And no matter what I say about other
mm,
people, my opinion about other people is always only about me. It can't be about anyone else. I can only ever talk about myself.
mm. Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
find that to be exactly the case. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So no, there's no negative emotions ever. There's emotional indicators
Yeah.
that are, pointing us in a direction that we need to be quiet and look.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And when I was younger, I don't know how it hit me, but intuitively, I came up with this knowing. Maybe I might have read it in a book, but it was when I feel anger or frustration or judgment toward another person in any way, and I catch that I'm feeling that, because at first I wasn't able to even catch it all the time.
Mm.
But when I catch that I'm feeling that, I would actually stop myself and I'd say, okay, what is it about that person that reminds me of myself? And I just use that to, and it would be really hard sometimes if a person felt particularly frustrating to me, or but I noticed the more they felt frustrating, or the more tendency I had to blame or point the finger outward, the more they probably were reminding myself of me in some way. And so I would keep putting that arrow back. I would just ask, what is it about me? What is it about that person that reminds me of myself? And sooner or
Yes.
later I would always find it. I'd be like, oh, okay, it's because it could even be simple as they're confident, or they're
Yeah.
using a term I might use, or anything. And
Yeah.
then I'd say, oh, okay. And suddenly it still felt hot. It still felt like the emotion was still there, but it wasn't there and being projected outward like I need to do something about it out there. And that
Mm.
that makes you feel helpless in a way because that person's not going to change for you, probably. That the
Yeah.
world's not going to change to suit you. But you can come in such contact with your own experience that the experience, changes and morphs and integrates. And yeah, so that's what I found, and it did lead to that insight that for the most part, when we look out, we really see ourself. We
Yes.
see our own preconceived ideas about what it means
Yes.
to be a person and other people's motivations and so forth. Um, and especially, I would say, especially when there's emotional charge to it,
Yes.
it's a good time to stop and look inside. Yeah, and so in one sense, what some people might call negative emotions are actually gold mines if you're willing to feel it
Absolutely.
and willing to stop blaming. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
When I work with the fifth feather, I work with what I call verbal indicators, and it's a fear, anger. No, sorry, blaming, shaming, complaining, and explaining. So every time I'm blaming someone for something, I need to look at myself. When I'm complaining about something or someone, I need to look at myself. When I'm shaming, obviously, surely I need to look at myself, and then also explaining whenever I feel the need to justify my action, I need to look at what is really going on here. Why do I have a need to justify myself
Hmm.
towards anyone ever? So it's a very, very easy tool to be aware when you're out and about. And like you said in the beginning, it's really difficult to hear that basically every time you open your mouth, you're complaining, blaming, shaming, or explaining about something or about someone, about yourself. I mean, it's also our own thoughts, the way that we talk to ourselves. Are we nice? Are you nice towards yourself when you think? When you bump into a door, when you drop something on the floor, what are you saying? Are you kind towards yourself? Oh, that's okay, and just kind and compassionate towards what is happening, or are you on your case about something that just happened? So becoming aware
Mm.
of the verbal indicators of blaming, shaming, complaining, and explaining are really, really useful to do exactly what you did when you were a kid, realizing that it's only ever about me, only ever.
Do you separate the fourth and fifth fetter as a
Yes.
process, or do you have different ways of thinking about or having people address desire versus aversion or ill will and so forth?
Yeah, the fourth and the fifth. The fourth is about desire, all the things that I want, and the fifth is about all the things I don't want. And obviously, as I said with the ego, those are basically the same. I am not, I should be, I don't want, I do want. So it is the same. But
Hmm.
I do a lot to separate them because they had two different starting points. Um, the all the things that we want is something about is something that we normally call self-worth or self-esteem, or that is low and I need to build myself up. So I want that, or I want a diversion from what I'm feeling. I don't feel okay with myself, so I'm sitting and flicking on Netflix, or I'm scrolling on Facebook, or I'm diverting myself in any way because there's something that I want, because there's an internal experience that is not okay, that I do not want. But I put a lot of focus on the projection, on what it is, what is it that you think you will achieve, what is it you think that partner is going to do for you, that is not happening in you by itself. So I put a lot of focus on all the things that we want. I don't put them under one umbrella like I know Kevin and Christiana are doing. I separate them because I find it very
Mm.
interesting to look
Yeah.
into to what is it. For example, in a partner, like we also talked about last time we spoke. I actually think we talked about that when the camera wasn't rolling. Where we talked about the part with
Oh.
with yeah, with where we talked about the part of wanting a relationship or wanting a partner to make sure that something that is internal is not being felt. So it's a lot of
Hmm.
responsibility to put on another human being that the poor person is not, ever, able to do anything about, and is not supposed to do anything about. So it's very much about looking inward in what is it that you do not um, think. that you are, that you expect something else to make you be. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the fifth feather, which is aversion, all the things we don't want, it's very much about the it's very much about the very, very, very deep seated feelings, underlying beliefs that we have in ourselves. That is what I call when the starting point has been toxic, in the way that I have this part of me that I do not want, and I do not even want to look at it. So now I'm only focusing on, you need to be different in the world. You need to speak nicely. You need to stop being gay. You need to stop, with all the things that, all the discussions and arguments and workplaces and all of that is always about um, you wanting them to be different. And the only reason you want them to be different is so you don't have to look at you. So you don't have to take a look in the mirror on the inside of your bubble of reality and seeing that you do not like the picture. But the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
um, you the picture is there. Things are there. The icky person that you do not want to be, you are. And it's not going away by pretending that it's the other people that need to be different. If only Janice in the office, she wasn't, always so bossy and always telling everyone, then the workplace would be great. If only Janice, she didn't, that's completely delusional. Janice
Yeah.
is here on the planet to be Janice. She's not supposed to
Mm-hmm.
do anything. I'm supposed to look at, what is it in me, what is my toxic starting point that I do not want to
Mm-hmm.
be, and I do not want it so much that I rather want to tell everyone off, and they need to change so that I don't have to look at myself.
Mm. Do you find it tends to be related to the qualities of Janice or the person that you're sort of
Of
projecting
course,
outward onto?
of course,
That
of
that
course,
yeah,
of course,
that's what I find too.
of
Yeah.
course, because otherwise, I mean, other people are fine with Janice. I mean, Janice's mom loved
Right.
Janice, and Janice is probably married, and her kids
Mm-hmm.
think she's amazing. I'm the only one with an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about sixth and seventh fetters?
Um, yes. The sixth fetter is very much about practicing synesthesia. It's very much about
Mm.
dissolving the boundaries that we have to the outer world. That we have this idea that there's a cup, and this is only a cup. If I put flowers in it, it's a vase, and I think it's round. But when I sit and look at it after a while, it's not round anymore. When I sit and hold it with my closed eyes, all of a sudden it vanishes in my hand. So the outer world that we perceive is there and believe is there, it's not. It's just a perception.
Mm.
So the sixth fetter, I love doing that, and I love doing all the practices with the colors, where you can sit and look at a color that you perceive as something, and then the color changes in itself. Just like I said with the clouds, that we think it's a gray sky. It's never ever a gray sky. We just think it's a gray sky. And it's like that with our sight, that we don't look at things, we recognize things. Just like when we read a book, you
Mm-hmm.
don't read every single word, you recognize the words, and that's why you can read so quickly. um and it's the same when you look at things. That is a cup, and that is a book, and that is a pen, and that is Angelo. We look at things and we recognize it. So what I do when I work with the six fetter is slowing down, slowing down, slowing down, and really, really moving so slow that you have a lot of focus in really, really looking, really, really seeing what it is that you're looking at, and don't take anything for granted. Um, I had in 2012, I was in an accident, in a sports accident, and I sustained a traumatic brain injury, and I lost my. It was really a bad injury, and I lost my ability to create memories. So I had like a 3 hour memory in the beginning, and then 3 day memory, and um, I had I was functionally blind, so I could see things, but I couldn't see what was there. I could see what my brain thought was there. And I had one experience that was in 20. It's very recent that my memory has come back. That was in September 21. Everything from 2012 until September 21, I have no recollection of. So it's very, very new,
You
and I
had
celebrate.
anterograde amnesia.
Yeah, yeah. It
Wow.
was it was like it was like I had the same kind of a brain condition, what you can say, as you have with Alzheimer's and dementia. That everything that happened before the accident was completely clear. Everything about medicine and all of that completely was still there, but I could for the life of me not remember yeah, new people, or if I had
Wow.
done shopping or stuff like that. Um,
Mm.
and I had an experience talking about the six feta stuff. I had practiced before the accident. I had practiced the two dimensions. When we look at things, we think it's three dimensions, but it's only the brain that is creating the third dimension. Everything is, when you look at it, flat. It has, a width and a height, and that's
Hmm.
it. It doesn't have a depth. And I had practiced that in meditation before my accident. But after the accident, I had a long, long period of 5 years or something like that. A long, long period where I saw everything two dimensional. I couldn't have the depth in it. Um, and I remember I was at some point I was living in my family's summer house. We have a summer house in the forest down by the beach where there's no internet and no television, no radio and anything. And I couldn't read, and I couldn't write, and I couldn't hold a conversation because I simply didn't understand what was said. I understood the individual words, but I couldn't put it together to a meaning. So I was basically sitting on the deck for a year and a half and just breathing in the forest and being the trees and being the squirrels and being the animals and um what was it I wanted to say? Yeah, it was about the delusion of sight. I had an experience
Mm.
where I was that was here in the UK in 2020 during the first lockdown, where I was in my apartment and I heard like a huge crash in the kitchen, and I went into the kitchen and I looked at the kitchen, and there was nothing to see. There was like kitchen table and nothing to see. So I went to the table and put my hands on the table, and then I could feel soil, and the moment I could feel the soil, I suddenly could see that one of my plant I love plants, and one of my plants had fallen down and it has smashed on the kitchen
Mm.
table, and there was soil and plant and pot everywhere, but I couldn't see it until I touched it. And that was
Mm.
all those experiences that I had regarding my sight, that functional blindness that I had, really, really um, really gave me a lot of amazing tools for people that are working with a six feta. Because I know it's
Mm.
all about how the brain perceives it, how we think we perceive it. And an exercise that anyone can
Hmm.
do now is, take a photo album from when you were a child, and then take a picture that you looked at a million times, and then really sit down with the picture, breathe and really, really look at the picture, really see what is on the picture. And suddenly you will start to notice details that you haven't noticed before: what people are wearing, the way they are standing, the distance between them. You will see a lot of things which you have never ever noticed before, because we tend just to recognize things, we don't really look at things. So that's what I'm doing with the six feta. And
Mm. I
the
love it.
seventh feta, thank you. And the seventh feta, I look at that is um, the formlessness in form. The way that I the way that I work with it is all the things that is nothing that we make into something, which means it's, for example, our past. Our past is not here. It's not even real anywhere. It's a memory. No, and it's not even a memory. It's an experience that we had in the moment, that when we perceived it in a certain way, and that experience we then added a post-it on with an interpretation of the experience. And from that moment we only reacted on the post-it and put a post-it on the post-it. So 15 years down the line, we have completely forgot what was happening, and we're only talking about the bloody post-it that we're repeating over and over. That's why we have, like I have four siblings. We have or three siblings. We're four in total. um, we have completely different experiences about our childhood because we have different post-its. Um, and whenever
Mm.
if you have siblings, you have had completely different upbringings. Like, do you remember when mom said so and so, and the other goes like, no, she never did that. And yeah, Merry Christmas, and we can all have parties like that for Christmas, where with the families and all that. But it's basically because we have this locked in perception about what the past was. And I'm not trying to gaslight anyone that has trauma, or say that it didn't happen. It's not at all what I'm doing. I'm just opening up for the possibility that what happened, yes, it happened. It's not what I'm questioning. I'm questioning all the post-its that you added to it afterwards. Could it be that you can, look at every single post-it and getting into the raw experience, and then be with compassion to what happened towards you, but also be with compassion towards the perpetrator, or the other person involved in it. Um, for example, if you've been bullied in school, then partly look at the shame that you felt, but you can also, pull yourself out as an anthropologist and look at the shame that the bully did towards you, because when you're bullying, you still have a sense of shame, otherwise you wouldn't bully. And everybody that was standing and looking at it and didn't do anything, they also had the sense of shame. So you were not the only one there in that scenario with the sense of shame. Everyone involved had that sense of shame, and opening up for compassion in that way dissolves that fixed idea that we can have, where we have created something out of nothing. So that's the seventh fetter.
Mm.
It's just one example of
Yeah.
what I'm working with the seventh. Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. The seventh fetter is a fun one.
Yes. 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 Yes,
Mm.
it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. The one that I really enjoy
Yes.
working.
The
Sorry.
emptiness is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
I was just going to say the emptiness is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely is. Absolutely is. And also because it's so difficult for us to leave the emptiness alone. We so want to put a label on it, and by that it's not emptiness anymore. It's one of the things why I really love Tao Te Ching. Because it makes it so clear when you read the Tao, that whenever you try to put a word on it, you have lost it. Then it's not the Tao anymore. Um, then you have made it, the nothing has been made into something, and by that we have lost it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. This becomes quite ineffable.
The feather that I love to work the most with, and thank God, the way that the feathers are, the way that I work with them, but it's also because I'm understanding things differently, as I said. It's the ninth fetter, and the ninth fetter is as soon as you have understood about identification in the first three fetters, so you have understood the identification of thought, the identification of feelings, and you have understood the identification that you have in habits, in practices, the things that you do in your everyday life. When you don't identify with that anymore, then you're putting yourself in a position where you're opening up for flow. And with flow, it's that navigation that we have in us, within us. We have that body yes, body no all the time. We always very, very clearly know if we want to do something or do not want to do something. There's been made that Iowa experiment, I think, at some point, with the cards, with the blue
The
and the
Iowa
red cards.
gambling
Yeah,
experiment.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Where the brain and the subconscious knows way before we know. And in that you have the access for the body yes, body no. I mean, if we measure your pupil dilation and the perspiration in your hands and the heart rate and the flicker of your eyes, and you can, if you start to open up to that, you can feel when you have a body yes, body no. And a body yes is when your pupils are dilating and where you get very, very, you have like this feeling of, the way that it feels in my body is like this surge that is going like up. It's like an expansion I experience in me when I have a body yes, something that I really want to do. Um, and even though my mind goes like, no, 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 it's not a good idea, the body just goes like, yes, 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 yes. It's just like really opening up. There's that, expanding energy, where a body no is like, well, the mind might say that, well, you have to do this, you have to do this, and you have to do that, but the body no is very clear. It's exactly the opposite. Your pupils are contracting, and it's like the energy in your body is just like roar, going, contracting inwards, 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 and you have that feeling of going small. Your breathing becomes very, very, shallow and really, not present at all. So it's very easy to feel into a body yes, body no. And there's always people that are going, well, I can talk myself into a chocolate cake that is very much a body yes always. But it's not. If you're completely honest with yourself, you can feel if it is a body yes or body no. And when you open up for that, you open up for the ninth fetter, which is all about flow. And that is when you completely understand that you can only use your head to look good. You can't use your head to anything. If you allow yourself to be in that flow, where things are just moving and you're just moving with them, and you haven't got a preference into going in one direction or the other direction. I usually say that you haven't got a preference to get a root canal or having a warm bath. You just flow with it, and whatever is happening, it's completely fine, because every situation is useful. There's something amazing in every single situation. Um, and I love that you can work with the ninth fetter already from when you have, seen through the first three, where you can start to open up for that
Mhm.
dynamic of flow and synchronicity, which is just happening. So that's my favorite fetter.
Yeah,
Mm.
I love it. I agree with that. Actually, very much that you have access to that early on, and there's, I think Adyashanti has said it this way a few times, and it's pretty accurate that there's something inside of us that wants to say no. It wants to say no to waking up, no to being asleep, no to effort, no to effortlessness. It's just kind of saying no, 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 no. But I think after an initial shift in identity, you do have some access to that. There are times when it's the no is there, and it's not like you can do anything about it, but you can become aware of it. You can
Mm.
feel into it. But there are definitely moments of flow, moments of access, and um, you attune to that. I think it's synchronistic. It makes sense. It's natural. There's innocence there, and by becoming more open to that, more attuned to the conditions of that, and ultimately realizing that it's always available,
Yes.
really at some level. I
Yes.
think that's wonderful, and I think it does weave its way through all the other work.
Yeah, it does. It really, really does. And I also think that the more we open up to the fact of not knowing, of really acknowledging that we cannot ever know everything. It is impossible. We cannot be any different, and we cannot change anything, and we cannot achieve all the things we want to achieve. What we can do is stop interfering, you know just leave
Mm,
it, just leave it, and then things, take their own life, and it's just moving, and it's where it becomes so easy, you know so still be present if there is trauma, and if there is, fear, anger, guilt, and shame, and there is that underlying belief about you not being okay, then still have, create space for that. But do not lock you into wanting to solve it, because you can't solve it. It will dissolve itself. You just need to create space and have awareness about it, and then the flow will take care of the rest. Yeah.
mm, beautiful,
Mm.
beautifully stated. Yeah. So you have a YouTube channel. Is that your primary area people can find you?
Yeah, I have a homepage. which is damore.uk, my last
Okay.
name, and then .uk. That's my homepage. So it's where I collect everything on. But on my YouTube channel,
Okay.
what I have right now is the Awakening curriculum, where I'm going through every feta. I
Mm,
just finished the first feta, and I just started on the second feta. So it's gonna be a project that is gonna be over years, because I want to do
mm,
it really really thoroughly, where people get all the theory behind it, and these things like what we're talking about now, getting all that information, the theory behind it. But then you're supposed to be either have a guide or be in a group that can help you, or be with friends where you can talk about the material. So you're supposed to work with it with a group with other people, because like I said, your own starting point will always be either that or the other. You will either do, and those two things are
mm,
the same. Either you, like the example like I used, either you will keep neglecting yourself, or you will neglect the others. So you need a different starting point, and you can only get that through other people. And it's, you can do it with good friends, or you can be in a group, or yeah, there's lots of different ways you can do it, but it is meant for you to work with actively. And then another thing I started with,
mm,
I've written a chapter for a book called Autism and Buddhist Practice. And it's 16
mm,
accounts of different autistic autists, where we are writing about how we have used Buddhism to gain, yeah, become mindful in our lives, and managing our meltdowns, shutdowns, masking, burnouts, all of that. And right now I'm interviewing them. And it's such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure sitting and speaking specifically with other autists about the Buddhist practice, about meditation practice, and so on.
mm.
And I have that on my YouTube channel as
Beautiful.
well. Yeah,
Oh, you do? Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. So that's published now?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Angela, I want to tell you, one of the contributors in the
Mhm,
book, she was 11 when she wrote the chapter. She's 13 now. Her name is Jessica, and she's autistic mute. And normally,
mm,
autistic mutism is called selective mutism. It's such a bad description, because there's nothing selective about it. It's because you're overwhelmed and you need a long time to think before you can speak, and it's usually happening to
mm.
autists. And Jessica, she's autistic mute, and she has agreed to do the interview, which is amazing. Which means
Oh,
that
I
I
love
am,
it.
yeah, it's so good. So I have sent her a video about the questions that I want to ask her, and then she has the video now, and then she's recording her replies when she's sitting in her bedroom at home with the door closed, and she's calm, and she has all the time in the world to think about the answer, and then she will answer, the way she can, and then I'm gonna edit it into an interview afterwards. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Yeah.
That's so cool. Oh, I'm really happy to hear that. I wanna see that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that's
Okay.
also
Well, what I'll do then is I'll put all of these links. Go ahead.
no, no, no. It's fine. Everything is on my channel, on my YouTube
Oh, I was
channel.
just gonna say
Yeah.
I'll yep, I'll put all these links under the video that we record here, so people can see your main page, your website, and your YouTube channel. And then anything else you want, let me know, and I'll have all these links for people to find your resources. For anyone watching, they already know, but your clarity and your precision is really remarkable about this stuff. I mean, we're talking about subtle stuff, but you're talking about it in very plain terms and very actionable terms, which is really awesome. I mean, it's the kind of stuff you have to do in these deeper stages of realization, where you really just look at something, slow way down, and really look at something and see what are the layers of processing that are occurring, and
Mm.
back that down until you just have that immediate experience, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Thank
right.
you. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It was a great conversation. I'm sure we'll have some other conversations in the future, and
I would love
um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and good luck with your project. Yeah, I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
seeing those videos.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.